Hello, everybody. You're listening and watching KPPP 88.1 Fargo Moorhead, a Mexican Crossing Lines. We have a show that's going to be on in about a minute. We're on right now, actually. I'd like you to invite people. It's very important. Hate crimes against young black girls in Fargo, North Dakota. It's very important news. Trying to give the family some relief and some justice. So watch this. If you're watching on Facebook, you can also watch on YouTube at Duke 1517. So please let people know this is going on. Share it, and guaranteed, very valuable information. You can find this show on kpppfm.com/A Mexican Crossing Lines and on YouTube at Duke 1517. We're also going to play it on the air tonight, which is September 27th, about 9 p.m. It'll be on the air in Fargo Moorhead.
Welcome, everyone, to A Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP, Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Now, one of the things that we do at the station is media justice work. And the reason for that is because our media doesn't do a good enough job of investigating and reporting in depth, especially when we have issues such as a hate crime committed against black children. These types of cases, all too often, if they're not investigated and reported on in a more unpacking, deep depth type of way, they can end up doing a disservice to the story and the people involved, the victims. I think that, in part, that is what has already happened. Many of you locally may have already heard about the hate crime against black children that happened here in Fargo last Friday, which I am about to give you more information on today. What you didn't hear, what's missing from the story, is the fact that there's a lot of information that was not gathered by any of the news sources, TV or radio stations that aired this story. And I believe that the reason for that, Duke, is because no one ever interviewed the family. None of the news stations in our local area made a single phone call to either the parents of these children or the victims themselves. The second thing you need to know about the story is that there were multiple victims of a hate crime. The story indicates that one 11-year-old black child was choked and hit, assaulted, and while being called racial slurs, making this a hate crime. But it was multiple children that were actually assaulted, including being spit upon, being called racial slurs, and being physically assaulted. Here's just one of the many stories that came out about this incident that did not include some of the information I am sharing with you. You can see here the mug shot of Mr. Larry Balder. In this story by Paul Jurgens from the mighty 790 KFGO, shares the mugshot of 73-year-old Larry Balder and says that Cass County prosecutors have charged this man for felony aggravated assault for striking and choking an 11-year-old girl earlier this week. According to court documents obtained by the KFGO station, the girl and 4 boys were playing basketball in the 2700 block of 33 excuse me, 33.5 Avenue South in Fargo when Balder called them the N-word and told them to get off his property. The complaint says Baldner slapped the girl on the face, grabbed her by the hair and neck, and lifted her off of the ground, partially choking her for 5 to 6 seconds. Now, one of the things that I wanted to clarify, because more than anything, my reporting of this hate crime that occurred is to clarify information that was left out of all of the other reports for whatever reason that was, but also to kind of, one of the things that was in that article that you just read is that Baldner was yelling at children to get off of his property. What is not explained in this story or anywhere else is that Mr. Baldner lives 3 or 4 houses away from where these children play basketball. So the fact that he was going on about people getting off of his property is something that, as you will learn from the interview I had with these children, was not an atypical thing for Mr. Baldner to do. To just yell at people, get off my property, even when they weren't anywhere near his property. Mm-hmm. And typically the people he was yelling this to were all black children. This is the victim and her mom. This is Tylea with her mother, Siru Cotton. Now, Siru Cotton and her husband, Terry, were not able to protect their children on the day in question. Siru was at work, and Dad was inside and did not hear the altercation take place. But during this assault, little Tylea went and got help. She ran and got her sister because this 73-year-old grown man was calling her racial epithets, her and her friends, and was assaulting these children. So she went and got her older sister, Tyreen. This is Tylea and Tyreen. They are 1 year apart. Both of these children were assaulted. Tylea is 11. Tyreen is 12. 1 year apart. They're not their current age in this picture, but in order to do this report, I wanted to grab a picture of the two sisters together, and I was able to come up with this from Mom and Dad in time for our report. So these are the victims that we are talking about. In addition to the children, this is the location where the incident took place. Here you can see there is a driveway. There's two garage doors open there. These are townhomes where there is a adjoining driveway, basically. In the second photo, you can actually see where the children play basketball. And they have the permission of the neighbor that owns the basketball hoop to play basketball. This is something that they routinely do. It is not an atypical sight for you to see the children, as you did in the photo, playing basketball outside. In fact, Tylea and Tyreen are both playful, athletic children, and they're devoted to gymnastics. Little Tylea is a gymnast since the age of 4, so she can frequently be seen outside either tumbling or playing basketball, as children do. Other articles in North Dakota or in the area, this one is from Minot, Bismarck and Minot, from the Mighty. No, wait, that's not the Mighty 790. This is Hit 97, I think. We'll get to the name of the station in a minute. Here's the headline, folks. This is the headline. Black North Dakota child is a victim of an alleged violent crime. Let's see if they did any better at recounting what occurred. In this story, it says, Larry Baldner, 73-year-old man, Cass County, is facing up to 15 years in prison for allegedly assaulting an 11-year-old black girl and then being uncooperative with the police officers. He was uncooperative. When the police officers arrived, he was uncooperative. Not only that, Baldner is accused of telling the girl and her sister that their skin is the color of
Beep.
beep. It is another word for excrement. He told these two children that their skin color is the color of excrement while calling them the N-word. There is even a witness who saw that Baldner picked the child up by her hair and choked her. Why did this happen? Well, according to this report, the confrontation first occurred when the young girl was playing basketball with people. Baldner reportedly told police that he had to wait for the group to get out of his driveway and wanted them off of his property, even though they were allowed to play in the neighbor's driveway. Things escalated from there, leading to a second altercation involving the girl's sister. Okay, there's a lot going on in that incorrect statement. As I've explained to everyone, Mr. Baldner is not neighbors with this Cotton family. The children play in the adjoining driveway in their home, on their townhouse, with the permission of the neighbor whose hoop they use to play basketball. Mr. Baldner lives 3 to 4 houses down. The children were not playing basketball in his driveway, on his property. So the fact that this story and others I have shown you speak about Mr. Baldner having to get people off of his property has nothing to do whatsoever with what actually occurred on this date. I also want you to take note of the fact that this story does say Mr. Baldner was uncooperative with the police. Sounds like he was kind of like rambunctious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can confirm for you, folks, because I spoke to the witness. I can confirm that what this says in the story is true. He did witness the child being choked, her hair being ripped out of her head, her braid being ripped out of her head. He witnessed all of this, verified to me that indeed this attack took place, and it wasn't just this little girl. The other little girl, her sister Tyreen, was also assaulted by Larry Baldner, had her hair pulled. I will let these two children, in their own words, tell you what this man did to them in just a moment when I play this interview, but I want it to be very clear to you that there were some things missing from all of these stories. Mm-hmm. And again, no one in the media reached out to the children or the family involved. Let's go to the next part of the story. Just to finish up here with this story from this radio station, it says, there are no words to describe how disturbing this story is. This was from Hot 97.5, Bismarck, Mandan's #1 hit music station. That's our source here. Mm-hmm. So this story made it all across the state, Duke.
Oh, yeah.
And in none of them did they actually speak to the family. And of course, as it says here in this story, this was a very traumatizing and disturbing event. But we don't know how traumatized and disturbed the children were because no one asked them. It says in this story, imagine the aftermath of the trauma this child just experienced in her young life. How could this affect her? An 11-year-old was playing with her friends when a stranger allegedly spewed racist remarks at her and beat her. That horrifying experience will likely shape her and affect her for the rest of her life. I think that's correct. And then it finally says that racism is clearly alive and well in North Dakota. This is racism right here in North Dakota. There's no excuse for anything like this happening ever. Thank God there was at least a witness to Baldner allegedly committing hate crimes against a child. Hopefully justice will be served. No, there is not just a witness. There are multiple witnesses. There are multiple witnesses, one of whom is a child, one of the black children he was hurling racial epithets at, who he spat on. That is an assault, right, Duke?
It is.
Somebody spits on a police officer, that could be charged with...
something about bodily fluids. They passed some legislation in North Dakota during HIV epidemic because officers and individuals in the community, if someone spat on them, they could potentially spread the virus. So they created a law in North Dakota to deal with that. So that's actually another crime in the state.
We don't even know if this man is vaccinated or not.
No.
But what I will tell you is what the father of these children told me, which is that when he heard the ruckus and he came out, and he was upset, as you can imagine any parent would be, especially if a whole grown man, a whole grown 73-year-old man put his hands on your baby, not just put his hands, choked your baby, lifted her off the ground by her neck, choking the life out of her, choking the breath out of her for under 10 seconds, but around an amount of time that could have killed this child. In addition to calling her racial slurs and telling her that her skin color is the color of excrement, her and her sister both. Both of these children were assaulted by Baldner, and there is no explanation anywhere in any of these articles why there's only charges of assault against one child. He spit on a child whose name I cannot release yet because I have not spoken to his parents. He pulled the braid out and choked Aaliyah, and he pulled the hair of, and he also cussed out with racial slurs Tyreen. So here's Tylea's braid. I want you to look at what this man did. I have photographs from the family of this child's braid. And of course, these are extensions. If you know people that have black hair and do weaves or braids, you would understand how incredibly painful it would be for a child to have a braid like this ripped out of their head. And let me show you the back of Tylea's neck and head so you can see where he ripped this out of her. Right out of her head. The other thing that you need to know about this situation was that this man was intoxicated. According to the father of the family, who said that he noticed when he came out of the house and was very upset that this man had put his hands on his children, he immediately noticed that the man was intoxicated and realized that he was not going to be able to reason with this man. Did you notice mention of a highly intoxicated state that this man was in, according to the children and according to the father who was on the scene. Did you notice that mentioned in any of the police reports?
No, I didn't see that. I've read a few of them, and I didn't see any of those things mentioned. In fact, a lot of the things that we've learned by talking to the family, for example, are things that the media didn't cover because, as Cindy said, they didn't reach out to the family. I don't know who they talked to. A lot of times the media in this community just gets the press release from the police department, and they go ahead and print that, or they might do a little bit of research, but they move on to the next issue because, and this is something very, very serious and very needs our community attention, and they're not even given the details. So where do people get the information?
You're right. They usually use the press release and they don't check. They don't check to make sure that the police didn't leave anything out. Folks, I want you all to understand that police officers are human beings, okay? They are human beings and they can make mistakes. They can forget things. They can misremember things. Mm-hmm. They can leave things out of reports on purpose, accidentally, because they forgot, because the person that was told on the scene didn't get the information. But that's why we have reporters, so that we don't just regurgitate whatever the police sent us. Mm-hmm. We check. We talk to the family. We talk to the witness. You investigate the situation further, more and in depth, so you can find out, so you have a better picture of what the real truth is, what really happened. And as you listen to the interview I'm about to play for you, so you can hear what happened, I want you to listen to the information about the multiple children and how they were being attacked by Mr. Baldner with racial slurs. I also want you to know that the father who gave his statement to the police along with the victims of this crime, he heard Larry Baldner on the scene admit that he had been drinking. As you saw in the reports, many of them described that Larry Baldner was, what did they use as the word? He was difficult
tipsy.
It didn't say tipsy. The police report, the news reports, none of them said anything about alcohol. Yeah. What was the word that they used? They used a different word.
Uncooperative.
Uncooperative. Mr. Baldner was uncooperative. Was it perhaps because he was drunk? Is that the reason why they couldn't get him to cooperate? And when you take a statement from a drunk person that keeps rambling on about people on his property, is it possible that his account of what happened, since he was drunk at the time, may not have been as accurate, and therefore should not have just been reported from his mouth to the police report to whatever the media decided to pull off of that press release without actually talking to these folks, without actually investigating a little further to find out? I think so.
Oh, yeah.
I think that the story was done a great disservice because that wasn't done initially. So, folks, here's the interview from these two little girls, Tylea, age 11, Tyreen, age 12, and their mother, Siru, who is sitting next to them in the car as they recount what happened to them. Here we go.
I was going outside to play basketball, and then there's no one at my basketball hoop, and I heard the basketball bouncing, and I looked and I saw my friends, and I told them to come, and then I went to go get them, and then they told me so I went to go get my friends, and then my friends told me that, what's the man's name? That this man was being racist. And when my other friend fell and sprained his ankle, the man said, "Crybaby." And then and then I told the man, "Why are you being racist?"
Mhm.
Because the man called us a nigger, and I told him to stop being racist. When he saw me, he said he called me a nigger too, and then I got angry, and then I went to, and then he kept getting up all in my face, and I told him to get out my face, and then I got Tyree. When I was going to go play basketball,
Yeah.
there was no one at my basketball hoop, and then I saw my friends, and then I told him, and then I went to go get
Mhm.
them, and then they told me that this man was being racist and calling him a nigger, and when I said why are you being racist, he called me a nigger too, and then I went to go get Tyreen, yeah, and then Tyreen came out, and then Tyreen, do you want to explain the story?
Yeah. Okay, so here. Sorry. So I was inside on my phone, and out of nowhere, my sister she just runs in the room, looking like she was about to cry, saying this old man is like attacking her, calling her racist slurs. So then I was like, who? So I went outside, and when I went there, he was cussing out my friends. And then when I asked him why is he cussing out my friends, he said he started attacking me, calling us niggers, saying that our skin is the color of shit. And then whenever I asked him to stop, he got mad and he started calling me and my sister a hoe and a bitch, all those words. And then and then he started getting all up in my sister's face. And my sister was trying to back up, but he kept on following her.
No,
Yes?
no, no. So he got all in my face, and I told him to get out my face because spit was all going in my face, and I told him to get out my face, and I kept saying that, and then he got angry, and he was about to slap me in the face, and then I said, touch me to see what happened, touch me to see what happened, and I kept saying that, and then he touched me. Well, he didn't slap me. He grabbed me. Well, Tyrene pulled me behind her, and then the old man reached his arm and grabbed me by my neck and my hair, and the man started choking me, and I couldn't breathe, and I had asthma. And he took out my braid, and it hurt. And when he choked me, my and then my and then when he let go, my neck was hurting a lot, and then and my neck is still hurting.
Um, he just came outside and so like they were just playing basketball and then my friend fell and he started crying and he started going for my friend saying, "Stop crying, stop being a brat. If you're gonna be crying around here, then get out of this town and get out of this neighborhood," stuff like that. And then um my friend asked if he could leave them alone and then he just started talking more and started calling them niggers and stuff. He even spit on one of my friend's face. No, wait, well, every time we'll be walking down the sidewalk, he would just look at us, and sometimes he would be like, "Get off my property," but we would be walking on the sidewalk going. No, so he tried to hit my sister, but he was kind of drunk, so he kind of like fell, so I put my sister behind me so he wouldn't touch her, and he reached behind me, grabbed my sister, and started choking her. So then I told my friends, "Go get my dad, go get my dad," and so I was waiting for them, but they were taking a little too long, and my sister looked like she was kind of like out of breath. So then I striked him one time so he could let go of my sister, and then when he let go, I grabbed my sister and we tried to leave to go to my dad, and then he grabbed my sister again, and he grabbed me. He grabbed me by my hair, and then I strike. I like pushed him to the ground so he could like get away from us, and me and my sister we ran back home. So when I came out, he was like yelling at my neighbor Kevin in the car, and then he was like, "Oh, there's the bitch who was blah blah blah." No, he was like, "There's the bitch who was on my property." And then I was like, "They weren't on your property, they were on your neighbors." And he was like, "Yes, they were, and you weren't even there, you bitch, so I don't know what you're talking about." And then he was like, and then I was like, "Oh, will you shut up, please?" And then he was like, "You shut up, your skin color's the color of shit." And I was like, "Okay, and you don't, if you don't like people of color, just say that." And then he was like, "Shut up, you dust." No, he was like, "You're a dirty hoe." Yeah, he said, "Shut up, you're a dirty hoe." And then he started getting all up in my sister's face, calling her a bitch, calling, no. So he walked up to my sister and he was like, "You little bitch, keep on." I couldn't understand what he said, but he said, "Keep on." And he like sounded tipsy. He was just like, "I know you ain't talking. You're a dirty bitch." No, he said you're a dirty hoe. But his eyes were like, he just looked slumped, and he was talking slowly. And yeah.
He called me a bitch, a slut, a whore, and
The N-word.
that and the N-word, and he called me stupid, and then I kept getting mad, and he kept cursing at me, and then he kept saying it and saying it, and then I got angry, so I ran to my sister to get her, and then Tyrene came out, and that is when the whole when the whole thing started. Yeah, and sun's in my face, and I keep getting scared, and every time I go to sleep, I keep dreaming about the man choking me, and I always go to my mom's room and ask if I can sleep with her.
Wow.
So that should never happen to anybody's child.
No.
I think that it's very important that, you think about how a 73-year-old, this is an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old. You saw them. These are not big girls. These are not, they're children, for Christ's sake. They're children. And I think it would help to explain a lot of things that were left out of this story, including his non-cooperativeness, that he was drunk. And the children both could perceive and see that he was drunk, and actually was able to push him off of herself because he was drunk.
Exactly. And I thought it was really important that we actually let the children give their account of what happened. And the swear words in there, because they were being called these names. And in the newspaper, in those articles, they noticed they bleeped out the names. The impact of the kids actually saying what they were called is very important to hear. That's why we're leaving them in this broadcast, because it is actual testimony from the victims.
The victims should be heard. The victims should not be censored. And if these two children and the other 4 that were there were subjected to this hate and this speech, then we all need to know what it was. So let's be very clear. This hate crime was not perpetrated against one individual. This hate crime was perpetrated against several children. One of them had their hair ripped out. She was choked. She also mentioned she's an asthmatic, and her asthma is triggered by anxiety, which is triggered by her memory of being choked. as she said in the video,
Yeah.
in the interview. The other thing that is very important to remember is that Mr. Baldner, on the scene of the crime, admitted to have been drinking. The third thing that is very important to remember is this was a racially motivated attack. If you were listening, and I recommend that you go back and listen to the statement of these two children. Listen to it. Listen to it over again and over again. You will hear that this man is known to stand around outside and say to the children as they're passing, "Get off my property," when they're not on his property. You heard Tyreen say that when she walked up to the situation after she was called by her sister, the first thing this man said was, "That's the bee that was on my property." Was she on the property at the time? No. But that's what he sees. When he sees black children outside, he sees trespassers.
Yeah.
You see, it appears to me that he is, in his mind, criminalizing these children because this man lives 4 houses away. So he was insinuating himself into a child's basketball game and yelling things at them because he's a busybody, because he's a Karen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that this is still under investigation, and we hope that the leadership and the prosecution of this case is fair. But there are already concerns being voiced about the need for hate crimes to be taken seriously in the state of North Dakota. This is a statement that was put out by CARE, which is the Council of American Islamic Relations, on, after the horrific attack of this 11-year-old girl. This is from KVRR by Jim Monk. The nation's largest Muslim civil rights organization is calling for a new hate crime laws in North Dakota following reports that an 11-year-old girl was assaulted this week in Fargo. Remember, folks, it was multiple children, not just the 11-year-old Tylea. It was Tyreen, and it was one of their friends who was also spat upon, and all of those children were called racial epithets. But going on, this statement from CARE, the horrific act and the failure to prosecute it as a hate crime points to the need for clear legislation to deal with bias-motivated crimes in North Dakota, according to Edward Ahmed Mitchell, Deputy Director of the American Council on American Islamic Relations. The individual who allegedly committed this monstrous act did so with obvious racial motivation and should be charged accordingly. We urge North Dakota lawmakers to pass an updated hate crime law that will fully hold those who commit biased motivated crimes accountable. Duke, we know that there is a recently enacted local ordinance in Fargo that could be applied to this. And again, this is still under investigation, so we don't know for sure exactly what all charges will be brought against Mr. Baldner.
And also the ordinance in Fargo was recently passed, and they were criticized by going further than the state. So Fargo has a stronger hate crime ordinance than the state of North Dakota. There's a form, if you look it up on the Fargo City Commission's website, they have a form, it's a fillable form on the internet that the officers are supposed to make available to the victims of hate crimes, and they fill out the forms to get the...
It gets filed with the report.
And gets filed with the report. They're not offering forms. My experience with all the forms and remedies that people have is that very, very seldom does an officer say, here, you can do these things right now. And I believe that did not happen with this family. I think we sent them the form, and that needs to get filled out. But, it should be pursued. And the state of North Dakota does have to have stronger hate crime laws. And Fargo tried to up it, and they're not even using that at this moment that we know about.
What we want for this family is for them to be have all the available resources and information so they can see justice for their children and so that they can live in safety in their neighborhood. And these are parents that are committed to the life of their children. As I mentioned, these children are in sports. Here's a picture of the main victim, or the most discussed victim of this case, Tylea, with her gymnastics team. Mm-hmm. And Tylea and her mom, they eat, breathe, and live for their gymnastics meets.
Oh, yeah.
Traveling, going to, all of these different meets to compete with their team. And she's a fantastic gymnast. I mean, look at all of her medals. This little girl is outside of her house. When she's not at the gym practicing her tumbling, she is outside of her house practicing her tumbling. Mm-hmm. Look at all of her medals. This isn't even all of the medals she has. These are just some. I just wanted to show you an assortment of some of the medals. This little girl is a winner. She's a winner. Mm-hmm. She is a good teammate. She is a gymnast. She's a good athlete. And by all accounts, because I did interview just friends of the family that know the children and their character, they tell me these are two very well-behaved little girls. And their family members are hardworking Fargo business owners. In fact, this is their downtown food tent, kiosk, Pick-a-Bob. Maybe you've had some of their smoked meats at some point. This is Pick-a-Bob. It's a great place to eat. These are people that are tax-paying, business-owning, upstanding citizens in our community, and they deserve all of our love and support. This should never happen to anyone's child. And hate crimes in Fargo, we should send a clear message that they will not be tolerated. I hope that there is a lot of love and support sent and rallied around this family, because they sure do need it. If any of you have any information that you would like to send me or contact me about with regard to this hate crime or other stories, you can call us at our message line at 701-566-0917, or you can reach us on our social media, on Twitter at media_PPP. You can email Cindy at kpppfm.com or Duke at kpppfm.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and to follow us on all our social media platforms. Thank you for being with us here on A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You've been listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Good night and God bless.